We are on, guys. Hello out there, and hello out there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of That Film Podcast. I'm your host, David Weaver, and joining me, as usual, is Brian Salazar and James Blunt. This week we have two films up for review for you. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be 22 Jump Street, and the second one is going to be How to Train Your Dragon Part 2.
We can do this. You and me. As one.
Yeah, baby!
On June 13th, get ready to soar.
It's a lot to take in.
Get ready to roar.
Really?
And get ready for more.
Dragons? Dragons. Did you know about this?
DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Give me a cuddle.
Rated PG.
Okay, so our next movie is How to Train Your Dragon 2, which is clearly the sequel to How to Train Your Dragon, which came out in 2010. And so we were discussing earlier, maybe 4 years is too long between these movies, but I feel like it was a good length of time. I mean, I don't like it when they jump right on the bandwagon and we see a sequel in like a year or 18 months.
Cards.
Exactly.
Well, and also real quick, the amount of time seems to make sense considering how much the character has grown up. So.
Right, there is a time difference from part 1 to part 2.
Am I right that he's 20 years old in this movie? Because he makes a statement like, I haven't seen him in 20 years or something like that.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
It's
Good
kind
catch.
of spoilerific.
How's that?
Okay, anyway, I mean, who would you not see for 10
Well,
years?
first of all, just like we said in 22 Jump Street, they do show certain characters in the trailer. So
Oh, they do?
Yeah,
yeah.
they do.
They prepared for this.
They even say, yeah. Yeah, that's really spoilerific in this movie.
yeah, especially when you find out that the discovery of said person doesn't happen until like halfway into the movie. So
I don't know if it's halfway, but it's in there, yeah.
okay.
I'll agree with that. So I want to start off, I want to ask you guys, did anybody see this movie in 3D?
I did.
And Dave?
I did not.
So what did you think of the 3D, Brian?
Kick ass.
I'm on board with you. I saw this movie in 3D and Atmos.
Whoa.
And
Where was that at?
it was actually, now get a load of this. I wanted to see the movie at the Chinese theater in the main hall, the IMAX theater. And the thing is, okay, first of all, can we take over the Chinese theater? Because I could run that thing so much better than what they're doing.
Oh, don't even get me started. I'm always debating whether or not how I could make theaters better. But
We'll get a load of this. Going into this weekend, How to Train Your Dragon, we all heard the hype, might be the biggest movie of the year. Now, that didn't pan out fine, but that's what we heard, right? During the day, the Chinese theater had time for 5 showtimes, right? Still with me?
yeah.
The first 2 showtimes were How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh.
The last 3 showtimes were Edge of Tomorrow,
What?
which, by the way, bombed in the box office last week. So why are they splitting time with Edge of Tomorrow?
Okay, was this a regular theater? You said it had Atmos, right?
No. I'm talking about the main Chinese theater, the IMAX,
Okay.
the main theater.
When movie studios put movies out to, especially an IMAX theater, there are contracts that are given for those, so they may have been contractually obligated to keep that film on there a certain amount of time.
To keep Edge of Tomorrow on?
Yeah, regardless of how well it did.
Well, so I wanted to see this movie in the main theater in the big IMAX screen. It was not airing in the evening at all. all across the weekend. They were not airing How to Train Your Dragon in the evening. But then I did notice that we've all heard of well, I'm talking to the two of you. There's the main theater at the Chinese, and then there's the Chinese Six. And in the Chinese Six, they have one big theater, which holds about 400 to 500 people, and that is an Atmos screen. And so they were showing How to Train Your Dragon in the evening, in 3D and in Atmos. And I had heard that it was worth seeing this movie in 3D, and I just lucked into seeing it in Atmos. And I have to say that both were well worth it. This is the best 3D movie I've seen in a long time. I never checked, Brian. Was this post-converted, or was it?
I'm pretty sure it was meant to be.
Was it made to be in 3D? Yeah, I would assume the same thing, just because of how well it was done. It looked great, and then the sound was great too, with things circling around. Dragons, for God's sake, circling around your head all over the place. It was a perfect setting for it. Having said all of that, though, I kind of decided that 3D and Atmos are not deal breakers for me. Like, I don't know that I would ever not see a movie because I couldn't see it in 3D or because I couldn't hear it in Atmos. They're nice frills, they're nice extras, but a good movie is a good movie, and I don't know that I would ever not see a movie just because I couldn't see it in one of those aspects.
Okay.
What about you, Brian? What did you say more about the 3D?
I think overall the movie was beautiful. It almost seems like, in some cases, I don't know what you would call it, like demo art or something, where they test out what it could possibly look like, and basically it seemed like they took that artwork and put it directly on the screen because it was so beautiful. Like, there's a big battle that happened in this movie, and just when you look in the background and see everything going on, and you look in the main story part where in the foreground, it blew me away by the look of it. And the 3D just makes it pop. And I actually watched part 1 the day before I saw part 2. I really didn't remember part 1 all that well, and both movies are just beautiful to watch in 3D. And it's actually rare for me to recommend a 3D movie, and this is one you definitely need to see in 3D.
Oh, so
I wish I would have saw it in Atmos, because I could just imagine how awesome that would have been. But I actually used my first experience in a IMAX to see this movie. It was the only one playing at a certain time in 3D, and I figured, well, you can't go over. And honestly, the sound is actually quite good. It was AMC IMAX, so if you take for that, then you're good. But don't fall for that gimmick of. And by the way, it was funny that hardly anybody was in that theater to see that movie. And I wonder if it's because of high prices and the 3D itself.
I mean, it hasn't stopped families from forking out cash in the past.
Yeah, but you're looking like
the thing is, like Brian is saying, you end up paying a double premium because you got to pay that extra $5 for the 3D, and you got to pay whatever they're going to charge you for IMAX. Don't even get me started about it not being real IMAX, but they still charge you the surcharge, right? So you end up paying like a double ticket price.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that the prices aren't absurd. I'm just saying, like, there have been family films that people are willing to pay that premium price for, but apparently this one wasn't it.
And also, for you guys, when you go to AMC IMAX, I don't know if you guys been there before or not, is it assigned seating for you guys as well?
No, I think it's just specific AMCs that do assigned seating, but every IMAX I've been to has never been assigned seating.
Well, the AMC in Glendora is now assigned seating, and we didn't know that. We actually ordered the tickets on our phone, and when we got there, we were there way before anybody else, and I started noticing people looking for numbers and stuff, and everyone was sitting toward the middle, so I was like, wait a second, something's up here. So luckily, 10 minutes before the movie started, I went to go ask the manager, and they said, yeah, it's assigned, so I had to switch my seats out.
Oh, okay.
Or we would have been more toward the front.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
the front's where you don't want to be in IMAX.
Yeah.
So that leads me to ask Dave, did you get a chance to watch How to Train Your Dragon, the first one?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna wait until I talked about the second one, but if you want to, I can give you some quick thoughts on it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I mentioned last week, I never got around to seeing the first film. I honestly do not remember the circumstances as to why I didn't get a chance to see that first film. I think at the time I was kind of down on DreamWorks animation. It's just a lot of their stuff at that up to that point had been a lot of movies that had dealt with like pop culture jokes and a bunch of other silly stuff. And when I saw How to Train Your Dragon, I mean the trailers for it and everything, I was like, oh, here comes another one.
Like Shark Tales.
Yeah, that or
That was
Kung Fu Panda or Monsters versus Aliens, all that stuff was kind of left me with a sour taste in my mouth from watching those. But yeah, so when that came out, I kind of skipped it, despite hearing really good things about it when it came out. Yeah, I just never got around to seeing it, which, I mean, for anybody that knows me, is actually really strange that I would let a movie go like that and never even give it a chance, even when it came out on video. But yeah, so wanting to go see the new one and hearing also really good things about it, I of course decided to watch the first film. So over the weekend, in the limited amount of time that I had, I was able to squeeze the film in, and me and my girlfriend watched it. She hadn't seen it either, and I will say that I am really sad that I missed this movie when it first came around. I'm going to admit that this may have been the turning point probably for DreamWorks, because I think after that film came out, almost every movie they had come out, they kind of stopped and they kind of calmed down on all the pop culture references and jokes in their films. I mean, I was never a huge fan of Kung Fu Panda. I mean, I thought it was good and entertaining and whatnot, but I never fell in love with it like a lot of other people did. But I got to say that I think that How to Train Your Dragon, the first film, when I watched it before seeing the second one, of course, I instantly already considered that to be probably my favorite DreamWorks animated film that they've done. They did what I always kind of hoped that they would do, where they treated the characters in the story with a maturity. Even though there's some comedy bits all throughout it, I thought they did a really good job of developing the characters of Hiccup and his how he meets Toothless and the relationship that's forged between those two, and the differences in this, and from Hiccup and the way the village is with the Vikings who want to just kill the dragons. I thought all that stuff was really well developed, and it was handled really well too. And every story beat that the film had, it felt genuine. Like none of it felt forced. And I liked a lot of and some of the stuff that happened in the movie, especially near the end, was pretty shocking for an animated movie. Some of the stuff that happened, especially what happened. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a spoiler stuff anymore. Since if you watch the second movie, you clearly know what happened in the first movie. But the thing that happened with Hiccup at the end of the film, the reveal, I was just like, whoa, they actually went there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. I think if on our number scale, I would probably give that a solid 8, without a doubt. So yeah.
So let me ask you to this, because both of you just recently saw the first movie. I don't remember Hiccup's foot being cut off.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I remember him being severely injured, but not like what. Explain. Did they show that or
no? They didn't
No.
show what happened to him. They showed it was Toothless diving into like this ball of fire that the Hiccup was falling into, and then they cut away from that, and the next thing you see is like Toothless covering Hiccup, like protecting him, and then when he lifts up his wings, they see Hiccup there, but they still don't show him completely. and you see them reacting to something, but you don't know what it is they're reacting to. It's not until actually later on when he wakes up in bed, and he puts his feet on the ground for the first time that he realizes what happened. And that's the first time we realize what happened. So they don't actually really show it at all until you see the aftermath of it.
But when he realizes what happened, they show his prosthetic?
Yeah, because the way they reveal it is like he puts one foot off the bed, and it's just a shot of the feet, and then the next foot that comes down is the metal prosthetic.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally had no memory of that. So thank you.
Yep.
So, going on into this movie, How to Train Your Dragon, I guess we're calling it 2?
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
Well, you called it Part 2, Brian.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
Well, I call it Part 2 also, but yeah, I guess it's 2.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, going on into this movie, I ended up feeling, and I'm jumping straight to the end now, that it just wasn't as good as the first one. And the reason is because, like most Part 1s, there's a lot of character development in that movie, and a lot of interreaction between the father and the son, and between the village people, and all of this. And then we jump to Part 2, and everyone's just kind of acclimated to having dragons around, where those used to be the sworn enemy. And it, like, the first movie didn't really have a clear villain, and then the second movie has like a diabolical, nefarious, like super villain. And then, like we've already mentioned, the big reveal about, this person who they haven't seen for a long time, I knew that going in just because I saw the trailer, and I don't think that's fair. That really diminished my ability to enjoy this movie, because that should have been some kind of a big reveal, and it simply wasn't for me. I knew it going into the movie,
and them advertising that in the trailer made no sense, because there's no way kids or families out there are going to be like, oh, that character's in this movie, we have to see this
right
now.
Exactly. It's not a selling point. It is not a selling point, so there's no reason to reveal it. And it was, as you watch this movie, it was made to be a surprise. It was made to be a big reveal, and it just wasn't for me. But as we've already mentioned, I do feel that the movie is just, I was going to say shot. I don't know what the correct verb is. Like, it's presented beautifully. I did like the action scene near the end. I think this series has a way of going the extra step, a little bit past maybe where some kids would be comfortable, but that's what makes it enjoyable for adults. And there was a lot in this movie where I was thinking that a kid's not even going to understand that. Like, there was some humor, or even just some poignancy that was for adults. And
Yes.
I've always felt that that is the way to make animation, because you throw in the aspects that are for children, but then you have some adult tones and some adult comedy, and you make it poignant, and you make it even like where maybe somebody might want to shed a tear or something, right? And I mean, going back to the old Disney, that's the way I feel like you make really good animation. And mentioning Disney, this is, even though I felt that How to Train Your Dragon 1 is a overall better film, this series is putting DreamWorks on par with Pixar for me, because Pixar is actually on a downslope with some of the stuff that they're putting out, and these two movies are really shaping up to make DreamWorks like the place to go to see quality animation.
And Pixar a place to go to see Cars 3.
Exactly. Which I just like I skipped the third Transformers, I skipped the second Cars, and you better believe I'm not seeing the third Cars unless one of you raves, and I'll be able to look into your eyes and tell whether you're lying to me just to get me into the theater. And as Brian does a close-up of his eyes. So yeah, overall, I enjoyed this movie, but it wasn't what I expected, so I was a little bit let down. This is one of those cases where the parts actually don't add up to be greater. The saying that the sum of the parts is greater than the individual. That's not the case here. I thought that the animation was great. The action was very good. There was good humor. The sound was awesome. But putting it all together, it just, for some reason, it didn't exactly work for me. If I was going to give it a number, it'd be something like a 7. And that's saying that it's a step down, because I really did feel like the first How to Train Your Dragons was like nearly probably a 9. Like, I really enjoyed that film.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts about it. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next because I'm going to keep it really short.
Okay.
I give the score. The score of this movie is an 8 to me. I liked it just as much as I liked Part 1. Really like how they spoke to the adult audience when doing this movie through the storyline. Glad they went into certain areas of the story between the father and son and so on and so on, and don't want to ruin that part. I thought that was really good stuff. Also, I want to give props to whoever does the animation for Toothless, the dragon. Because honestly, that's where, and being a theme park fan, I have no idea why Universal hasn't created an attraction based on this series, because it seems like it's a home run there with flying dragons and everything else going on, but I'm sure they're working on something.
Hopefully something's in production, but I almost feel like they didn't know what they had.
No, instead, guys, we're getting the Minions ride.
So let's move on. Continue, Brian. Did Brian freeze?
Oh,
well,
did
that's
he?
Awesome.
Maybe my joke was too much for him to handle.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Hopefully he realizes he froze and he's not talking to himself.
Well, he said he was going to keep it short, so whenever he wraps up.
That was pretty short. He wasn't lying. Oh, he disappeared.
He dropped.
Wow. Okay.
Do you have to invite him back?
I shouldn't have to. He should be able to just freely join up.
Is he the only one who's dropped like this? Because he's done it before.
Yeah. He's got like the most amazing like home theater setup, but he's probably got like the crappiest like internet connection.
It's 2 hamsters running on a wheel.
He's got Oswald running on the wheel.
Yeah. That's a thick dog. That's if he weighs 50 pounds, that might be. They have a problem there.
Oh.
He just said something. Go ahead and finish. I lost internet.
Whoa. Okay. So we're continuing on without Brian then. Well, at least he gave his score before he left.
Yeah.
he said he gave it a 7. So, all right. Well, that's sad.
Why do I think that he's just taking another bathroom break?
He's probably playing Street Fighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, I guess that just leaves me then. So about the sequel. So I guess I'm in kind of a different spot than both you and Brian were, where you guys had. I mean, yeah, Brian watched the other one recently, but you guys still had that 4-year gap between the films, where I actually saw them within 24 hours of each other for the first time. And I'm not really sure how that affected me with this film. But I kind of wish I had that bigger gap in between them. To like maybe the way he grew up and everything in this, and he's clearly older and wiser and whatnot. That I think maybe some of that was lost on me because of it, but I don't think the film suffered because of it. It's just kind of a personal note that I kind of wish that hindsight that I would have saw it back when it came out. But as far as like which film I liked better or not, or I think I kind of like them equally. I'm gonna probably be around an 8 on this as well. And I think the biggest selling point for me in this film was exactly the same stuff Brian was talking about before he lost his internet. Was the adult-oriented stuff in this, like the family aspects of the film. I really thought that they got that right, like the reunion of certain characters coming together again, and like the drama that was like there, or the revelations about certain things. I thought that was really well done. I mean, clearly adding this other, we're going to call this the mystery character into this film, was clearly like, hey, we need to make a sequel. Like, what kind of thing can we throw in there to mix things up? I honestly don't think that they ever intended to ever show us this character when they made the first film. This just felt like something like an idea, like they had, like, if we need to do a sequel, we can use this character for a story point. But even given that, I thought that they found a way to integrate that character into this film in a interesting way, where we realized that Hiccup wasn't the only person to realize, what the dragons actually were. And yeah, I can't get into much more of it without spoiler stuff, but the stuff near the end of the film, I was actually, once again, just like the first film, I was surprised at some of the places they went with this. It kind of was a little bit telegraphed, especially during that scene where Brian mentioned about the singing, the singing scene in the film. I felt at that moment that things were a little bit too perfect. And I knew we still had a long way to go in the film, and given what they did in the first film, I had in the back of my head that they were setting this up for something, and clearly that ended up being the case. It didn't lessen the impact of it.
Too much.
Huh?
You think too much.
What are you talking about?
You should just sit there and kind of let it happen. You're 2 steps ahead.
Oh. This coming from the guy who nitpicked Edge of Tomorrow left and right.
Well, because it didn't make sense.
You should just sit back and enjoy it, James. But in any case, none of that ruined the film for me. It's just, I was just able to figure out where it was going before it got there. So, but like I said, I'd still give this a solid 8. And one thing I didn't mention that also I liked about the first film that continued with this film is I really love the design of the dragons in these movies. Mm-hmm. How different they are from each other and stuff. It kind of reminded me, like, it's got that, like, I mean, they could make like a Pokemon type game with these dragons. There's like so many different variations of them out there, and like I love the idea that, like, even like years later, you discover something new about a dragon that it can do. Mm-hmm. It's like they really are like set up to be like these evolving creatures, which is where I got the whole like Pokemon notion in my head while watching them. But I really, the designs of them are really inventive, and they have a lot of personality to them also, especially for characters that don't talk. I'm really happy that they restrain. This is also kind of like a mixture of How to Train Your Dragon Part 1 and Part 2 here, so just bear with me. The restraint that the filmmakers had to not have the dragons talk. Because I could clearly see that maybe somebody at a brainstorming session maybe threw that out there at some point, and whoever shot them down, thank you. So, because the dragons have so, like Brian mentioned about the animation for Toothless, the dragons have so much personality to them and say so much with just their actions and their looks that they in some instances they're a little bit more endearing than even the actual human characters. Which I got to mention that if there was one thing I didn't really care for in this film was how all the other Viking characters were kind of kicked to the side for this film, and they were just kind of like on this like little side adventure of their own that really didn't amount to anything.
What didn't amount to anything?
Well, I mean, they're going to find the bad guy. They find the bad guy, and then that nothing comes of that. That basically is more of a means to an end to get them to where Hiccup is. Where it felt like filler to me, whereas the more important aspects of the film were the stuff with Hiccup and his dad. And all the family stuff.
The way I saw that was they thought that Hiccup went to the bad guy, so they went tracking the bad guy.
No,
but Hiccup hadn't gone to the bad guy.
I understood why they did that, but by the end of the film, I was thinking back, and like everything that they had done was kind of pointless. So, because they just, I don't know, it didn't feel like they contributed much to it, and I thought that there was going to be more developed, because at the early parts of the film, you have Hiccup and Astrid, together for a good portion of the beginning of this film. I figured that there was going to be more development between those two characters, and they're almost apart for the entire film after those opening moments, where they focus more on, the mystery character that pops up. So that stuff was a little bit underwhelming to me, I guess, although I did really enjoy the sister of the two-headed, sister, and the twin and her infatuation with the dragon catcher. And like those close-ups of his sweating biceps, like that stuff was just comedy gold. It was
awesome.
Yeah,
it really was.
And it never got tired. Like she kept doing it, like fawning after him the entire movie, and every time it was just as funny as the first. So I did like that part of it. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up and say that I really enjoyed How to Train Your Dragon 2. Or Part 2, whatever you want to call it. It gives me that much more confidence in DreamWorks. Like you said, Pixar needs to get its shit together, because they're no longer the top dog in the neighborhood. I mean, we mentioned it last year with Frozen, that even Disney's animation studio is beginning to surpass what Pixar does. So everybody's catching up, and they're resting on their laurels. I think, I mean, I've got high hopes for The Incredibles Part 2 whenever that comes out. But as far as like any original content they have, they need to get it out there as soon as possible. We need to stop with the with the sequels already. I mean, we know we got Cars 3 coming. I just mentioned Incredibles 2, and we know we got Finding Nemo Part 2. What was it called? Finding Dory coming out. And, even though How to Train Your Dragon Part 2 is a sequel, it's a good sequel that is a good companion piece to the original, where you can't say that for a lot of Pixar sequels aside from maybe the Toy Story movies. So, yeah. But, yeah, How to Train Your Dragon 2, very good film. I thought this was a really good weekend for sequels. Yeah, we got two really good sequels. So, yeah, I just kind of wish that Dragon would have done a little bit better, considering that,
Well, hopefully Brian's right, and it has some staying power. It hangs in there for a while. But I'm just kind of skeptical.
I would like to see a third movie. I think that they've created a world where they can definitely explore more aspects of stuff.
So let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
In the movie, you alluded to the fact that like they find out some things that the dragon can do that they didn't know about, right? With Toothless. Did they ever exploit that?
He did at the very end when they were diving towards the big dragon. Like they showed the little things popping out so that he would. He had to perform like a certain maneuver or something. But other than that, no, they didn't really do much with it.
See, I noticed them pop out, and I mean at this point we should just say that he has like an additional row of like fins on his back. But and in that final scene, I noticed him pop out, but I didn't notice him specifically do something that he couldn't have done before. Which is what I was questioning. And then the second thing is, for someone like you who has just seen the first movie, can you explain to me in this movie, like sometimes Toothless can fly by himself, and sometimes he can't. And what is the reason for that?
Well, I mean that's his tail. The tail.
I understand that he had his injured tail. That's from the first movie. I mean that's the whole thing about their relationship. But why is it that sometimes he just when what's his name?
A Hiccup.
Sometimes when Hiccup leaves Toothless just like kind of crashes and burns, and sometimes Toothless can do stuff on his own.
They established in the first movie that Hiccup was in direct control of that additional wing that he added to him, and that Toothless didn't really have much control over it at all. But they established at the end of the first film that when they put on a new and improved wing, that they were going to try and work on his solo flying. And what I got from it was they were still working on it in this film. Because in this film, like you said, there's sometimes where he's able to fly and sometimes he's not. But in the first film, he was never able to fly on his own.
See, I get that. Yeah, it just seemed weird that like sometimes he can go so far as to save Hiccup, and then there was this one point where he literally crashes in the middle of the ocean and can't do anything about it. And I was like, oh, I don't understand.
Yeah, I guess I was a little bit foggy. But like I said, I mean that's how I rationalized in my head. But by no means is that a de facto answer. I have no idea.
Okay.
So,
I mean, those are minor quibbles. I was just asking a question there.
Yeah, understandable questions. But yeah. Real quick, what did you think about the villain in this movie? I mean, just like I don't know, like quick thoughts on it or something, but.
I'm gonna jump to the very end and say I'm gonna steal here. I'm admitting that I'm stealing a line from Brian.
Oh no! Okay.
In our Game of Thrones conversation, where if you don't see him die, then because I don't think we saw the villain die.
Okay.
So we might be seeing it. Hopefully, it won't be in 3, but maybe later on.
I kind of liked what they were doing with the character, and I was happy that they gave him like somewhat of a backstory and a reason for doing what he's doing, because we've mentioned it on here time and again, and I've heard you say this even more so, is that a villain is is a lot better or is better served or better serving the story when they have an actual reason for doing what they're doing.
When they're justified. Or at least
they're justified. Yeah, when they see themselves kind of as the hero of the story.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I'm glad that they did that with this instead of just giving us like some sort of paper thin villain who just wanted to go around and destroy things.
I enjoyed the villain to the extent that you're talking about. What I didn't like, and it is not particularly, it's not directly about the villain. They never really conceded that Hiccup was wrong. because throughout this whole movie, Hiccup was saying, if I can just talk to people, I can convince them anything. I can change anybody's mind. Like, I can make them see the light. And everyone's saying, this dude is a villain. Like, you don't know what you are talking about. We have experienced him before. You don't, you haven't. And Hiccup is, as the hero, he is the hero, but he is flat out wrong. And they never address that.
And I think I can, as you say that, I can picture in my head the perfect moment that they could have had that conceit happen. I'm going to try and tiptoe around spoilers here as much as possible, but directly after a significant moment happens at the end of the film, at the end of the big battle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's during this when do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, and and there's a moment there where Hiccup is kind of looking off into the distance, kind of like retrospect, or like I don't know what the word is for it. I'm having a blank on it, but kind of like like he's deep in thought or something like that, and that would have been a perfect moment for him to admit that his dad was right.
Yes.
And they, like you said, they totally missed that, and they don't ever bring it up ever again. So that was kind of sad. The thing I was also gonna bring up was, and this is kind of a nitpicky thing also. I don't want to get too bogged down in these, but it's just something I just remembered thinking about during the movie. Was that we never clearly get a good idea of how the villain in this film, how he's able to control the dragon that he has control over. Like we know how he has control of all the smaller dragons. That's clearly established, but I don't ever understand how he got control of such a gigantic creature. I wasn't too sure, but it's not like he could throw a leash onto it and drag it around. So
they did in kind of a way. I mean, they had all those chains and were dragging it along the bottom of the ocean.
But that still didn't establish why it did what he asked it to do.
Right.
I mean, I could understand if it came out and it just started brawling, but there was moments where he's like, "Hey, do this,"
He commands it. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't really understand how he had that much control over it.
I mean, to a limited degree, like you said, they establish that he can, for lack of a better word, train dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that he was incredulous that anyone else could do it.
Yeah.
Which is like why he was so interested in Hiccup. So it just left me kind of assuming that maybe on some larger scale he did the same thing to the Alpha.
Okay. I will buy that for now, but I'm still.
I understand the skepticism. It's not like a really solid explanation.
It's the size difference that really gets me.
Yeah, I got you.
So, okay. I think we're gonna wrap this up then. So I'm speaking for Brian. About How to Train Your Dragon 2 or Part 2 or whatever you want to call it. I think all three of us agree that it's still. I mean, you said you liked the first film a little bit better, but I think we all still agree that it's still a really solid sequel, and it's actually really good entertainment for families. Both films this week. Both films are worthwhile going out to see. So.
And I'll even say, like, I've talked to some of my friends at work who are fathers, and they talk about, like, taking their kids to see Frozen, and they're like, I'm kind of open to seeing animation and to seeing a Disney film and stuff, but there are some guys who are like, oh dear God, like, I don't think I could sit through that again, for something like Frozen. And I think most people can sit through How to Train Your Dragons. To use a cliche, it's like it has something for everyone because it's got some good action in it, and it's got some poignant moments, and it's got some comedy, and it's still a kids' film. And so, yeah, I feel like it hits on more points than something like Frozen did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not going to make nearly as much money.
Not nearly, but I mean, it is still a solid franchise.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. That says something.
So, okay, we have a decision to make real quick here. What are we going to do about next week?
What's the movie next week?
Well, it's our first week of the summer where we have two relatively small releases coming out. There's that Jersey Boys, and there's Think Like a Man 2.
Okay, I'm out.
So I was gonna say, it's like, are we gonna just skip next week?
Let's send Brian a text, but I think that's where we're leaning. Well,
Okay.
What do you think? Are you?
I'm kind of like iffy on Jersey Boys. I mean, I really like Clint Eastwood as a director. I think he's made some really fantastic films behind the camera. And I like movies, you know, what are they, biographical films, so I'm kind of interested in seeing it. But honestly, with my screwed up work schedule right now, I'd rather get extra sleep, than like make an effort to go out and see that. And Think Like a Man 2, I never saw the first one. My girlfriend tried to watch the first one, but she fell asleep halfway through it. So
Well, that says something.
So
for whatever reason, I feel no. I'm going to take that back. I was about to say that I'm guessing you probably don't need to see the first one and see the second, but I'm going to take that back because they probably established relationships and history and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
yeah. I'm not seeing either one of those. Even though I know people who have seen Jersey Boys, the musical, the play, and who have raved about it. And yet, so that's not saying that I'm saying that it's going to be horrid or bad or anything. I just don't want to see it.
I'm going to make a quick suggestion.
And I question releasing that movie in the summer. I think that's a bad choice.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, you're talking about Think Like a Man, right?
No, I'm talking about Jersey Boys.
Oh, Jersey Boys, yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking about both of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure the thought process behind Jersey Boys being released now. I mean, that seemed more like an award seasons type movie, or like like the winter or something.
Winter kind of movie, yes.
Yeah. And I'm really surprised that there are no big releases that weekend.
Well, maybe everybody was holding back for July 4th.
I guess.
But then
I think Transformers should have opened that weekend to give it more of a lead up to 4th of July, because otherwise they should have went to 4th of July. I don't know why they picked in between. It's really weird. But I was going to suggest, like, maybe, I mean, if you guys really want to do an episode next week, maybe we can focus on some of the smaller films that are out there right now. I know Brian said he was interested in seeing Chef.
And The Fault in Our Stars.
And if I can find it locally, I would actually like to go out and see that movie, The Signal.
Oh. Well, that is something to think about.
So yeah, I mean, we can figure that out, I guess, during the course of the week. But I guess we're going to say right now that unless we decide we want to do that, chances are we're taking next week off. Because the two major movies released next week aren't really piquing our interest there much at all.
Nope.
So okay. In that case, I'm free to end this. So let me do some closing bits here. So yeah, go ahead. You can visit our website at lightremoteaction.com, and you will be able to find links to the audio version of the show through iTunes. And And I mean, you can still find some of my old written reviews on there and stuff. But like I mentioned earlier at the outset of the show, I'm taking a hiatus on my written reviews to have a little bit more free time and more specifically to get some sleep. But you can also find links on. You also find links on there for our YouTube channel, and all the posts for the podcast are going to be on through there as well. So yeah, visit lightsremoteaction.com to find any of that stuff. I will make a concerted effort to get the draft updated this week, and I need to send you an update on the release shuffles. Also, I still haven't done that yet. I'm really behind on a lot of stuff right now, and I'm trying to get caught up with the important stuff first. And finally, like usual, if you're watching the video portion of the show, shortly after I conclude here, you'll see a series of links for almost everything else mentioned, plus some of our other more recent video reviews that you can check out if you want to. But yeah, that's it. We're done. We're out of here. So until next week, everybody out there, take care. See you later.